From terrifying leaked beta Pokemon to a ton of hidden features, let's take a look at some lesser known facts about Pokemon Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum. This is something I actually had no idea about until researching this video, but did you know you can actually clean your badges? So while you're traveling the beautiful Sinnoh region, wiping out Bidoofs and stomping on Barry, after a while your badges would actually start to get a bit dull and dirty. Well, that's no problem of course, as you can utilize your DS stylus to actually wipe those badges and get them glistering once again. Did anyone know you could actually do this? Let me know down in the comments below. The whole Pokemon community is fascinated by shiny Pokemon ever since they debuted in Gold and Silver. But did you know Pokemon Diamond and Pearl introduced a method to make them easier to obtain? Junichi Matsuda, who directed the games, programmed a shiny breeding method whereby if a player put two Pokemon whose origins came from two different languages into the daycare, the chance of having a shiny would go from 1 in 8,192 to 1 in 2,048. So for example, if you had an English version Venusaur and bred it with a Japanese Venusaur, this would activate the method, thus increasing your chance of the bred Pokemon being shiny. In our previous fact series, we often talk about the settings of the games and how they are based off real life locations. Generation 1 was based off Kanto, Japan, Generation 2 is based off the Kansai region of Japan, Generation 3 is based off Kyushu, and Sinnoh is based off the northernmost island of Japan being Hokkaido. Hokkaido is known for its much colder climate, which carries over into Sinnoh of course. Cities in Sinnoh such as Jubilife is based off the capital of Hokkaido being Sapporo, with Jubilife TV taking inspiration from Sapporo TV Tower. The blistering cold Snow Point City is based off the Soya Prefecture of Sapporo, Veilstone City is based off Abashiri, a major port city, and Floroma Town pays homage to the flower production cities of Kamikawa, Ishikari, and Sorachi. I always find it fascinating where Pokemon regions take their inspirations from. So back in 2005 during the development of Diamond and Pearl, the CoroCoro magazine announced that in the following year in January they would run a fan competition whereby fans could put forward name ideas for a new Dragon-type move. With thousands of entrants, the move Draco Meteor emerged as the winner. What an absolute flex it would be to be the person who got to name a Pokemon move. As is common with each Pokemon game, many ideas are scrapped before the final releases of the games, and Pokemon Diamond and Pearl is no different. In July of 2020, the complete source code for Pokemon Diamond and Pearl was leaked, which our friends at the CuttingRoomFloor analysed. Among these leaks included different trainer sprites, shiny variations, different maps, musical differences, and gym leader designs. Most interestingly though, there were a bunch of Pokemon that were meant to receive gender differences. A female Umbreon had shorter ears than its male counterpart, and most notably, a female Charizard which has one horn as opposed to two. All of this and more from the source code leak is available on the CuttingRoomFloor website, which is linked in the description if you'd like to check it out after the video, and I think this earns a sub if you didn't know about this. As an extension to the previous fact, a beta sprite for Arceus was discovered in the 2020 Diamond and Pearl source leak, which features Arceus as a shadowy, ominous, and kind of terrifying silhouette. When fans discovered its existence, they fell in love with it instantly and started to make unique fan art out of it. During the time of Pokemon Diamond and Pearl's release, the international community started to take a bit more interest in the presence of gambling in video games, particularly children's games. In South Korea in particular, the country took a hard stance and banned gambling in video games designed for children, which forced the South Korean versions of Pokemon Diamond and Pearl to remove the slot machines from the Veilstone City game corner. By the time Pokemon Platinum was released in Europe in 2009, the game corner was removed in those versions as well. This started a movement worldwide, and from then on, all forms of slot machine type gambling was removed from Pokemon games. Each Pokemon game has come to introduce some quirky glitches over the years. One famously known in Generation 4 is a glitch that the community has referred to now as Acid Rain. Acid Rain is a glitch whereby a player can activate all form of weather effects at once, creating chaotic battle sequences. This is activated when in Pokemon Platinum, when any weather condition including Trick Room, Gravity, and Uproar, but excluding rain, is in effect, and the move Pursuit is used when the opposing Pokemon is being switched out. If the opposing Pokemon who is being switched out faints, this will cause all four weather types being Sun, Rain, Sand, and Hail to activate at once for the rest of the battle. This will cause damage to occur to the Pokemon each turn. Interestingly though, if a Pokemon has the ability Rain Dish or Ice Body, the Pokemon will be healed not once, but 4 times before the Pokemon takes damage. This is a really interesting one as I have no idea how this could have happened. For all my fellow Aussies out there, if you check the back cover of your copy of Pokemon Diamond, you'll notice a misprint on the box art. On the back of the box, the text refers to being able to search for a Pokemon that rules space, despite the box art legendary Dialga being the Pokemon that rules time. What makes this mind-boggling is that the Australian version actually released a solid 2 months after the North American release, which didn't have this misprint. Conversely though, there is a misprint on the North American manual of Pokemon Pearl, which refers to a Pokemon that controls time, rather than the featured legendary being Palkia. One of the cool things that Generation 4 expanded on was time-based events, and Junichi Masuda, the game's director, was keen to make his own mark on the concept. January 12th is Masuda's birthday, and there are some interesting things that happen in the games on this day. One thing that most people know about is what's referred to as diamond dust, whereby sparkling dust would fall to the ground rather than normal snowflakes in Snow Point City. This was actually something that was reintroduced into Scarlet and Violet as well. Another cool thing that happens on this day that was only recently discovered in 2020 is that when you are hatching eggs on January 12th, the eggs actually have 10% faster egg cycles. So for example, if you're hatching a Marill, rather than taking 2,816 steps like it normally would, it would only take you about 2,535 steps. This also stacks with abilities such as Flame Body and Magma Armor, which can create insanely fast hatching when put together. Okay, let me explain this one. As mentioned in our previous videos, check these out after the video, it helps. When Pokemon games are undergoing the process of translating Japanese to English, some things get changed to better suit the Western audience. One of the more peculiar examples of this comes in Diamond and Pearl. In the Japanese versions, if you go to Kanalave City Library, you can read old tales about how you could actually marry Pokemon. When directly translated, the text says, "There once were people who married Pokemon." This was a normal thing because long ago, people and Pokemon were the same. Obviously, this causes some problems in the West, so it makes sense that it was changed. However, it is theorized that this is actually referring to Muko Iri, which is a Japanese ancient marriage practice. This practice would see a groom actually be adopted into the wife's family in exchange for labor, sort of like a work contract if you will. Given its isolated use in Japan, it's theorized that this is why it was removed from the English version. Regardless of what the reason was, I think we're best off leaving it alone. After the success of Ruby and Sapphire, Pokemon once again was feeling the momentum it once had during the 1990s. However, it was facing challenges from online gaming. Games such as RuneScape, Neopets, and Habbo Hotel were massively successful online games, which was taking up time from the Pokemon fanbase. To counter this, the team at Game Freak knew they had to adapt. Pokemon Diamond and Pearl were the first games to introduce online features through the new Global Trade System, or the GTS. All of a sudden, this allowed players to trade and battle Pokemon with anyone in the world. Not only did this make it easier for players to complete the Pokédex, which was a problem in the previous generation, but it allowed players to actually connect with each other like never before, and created a genuine unique experience for the Generation 4 games. While Pokemon games normally have small innovations here and there from generation to generation, this felt like a genuine leap. Pokemon through the Diamond and Pearl games ensured that the franchise would remain relevant in the 21st century. And if you think this fact was interesting, then check out our Pokemon Facts series where we dive into the lesser known facts about each Pokemon generation.